Your home isn't dirty. It's drowning. Not in filth, in stuff, in things that crept in slowly, one bag at a time, one free gift, one just-in-case purchase. And somewhere along the way, your home stopped feeling like a sanctuary and started feeling like a storage unit you happened to sleep in. Japan figured this out centuries ago, not with a cleaning hack or a color-coded bin system, with a rule. One foundational rule that shapes how an entire culture thinks about home, about objects, about what a space is actually for. Today, I'm going to walk you through it. The real philosophy, the specific practices, and the surprising reason your home feels heavy even when it looks reasonably tidy. Stay until the end, because the last concept I'll share is the one most people never hear about, and it might be the most powerful shift of all. Let's start at the root. Because without understanding this, none of the specific rules make sense. In Japan, the home is not a place to accumulate. It's a place to return to. There's a word in Japanese called ma. It means negative space, purposeful emptiness. Not empty because nothing has been bought yet, but empty because emptiness itself is valued. Ma shows up in Japanese architecture, in garden design, in the pause between musical notes. And it shows up in how a room is arranged. Western homes are often designed around filling. A shelf goes up, something goes on it. A corner looks bare, something fills it. In Japan, that bare corner is not a problem to solve. It's breathing room. It's the space that makes everything else feel calm. That shift in thinking changes everything. Now let's talk about the philosophy that built this. Wabi-sabi. You may have heard this word before, but most people only understand half of it. Wabi means humble, simple, unpretentious. Sabi speaks to the passage of time, the beauty that comes from age and wear. Together, wabi-sabi is the idea that beauty lives in imperfection, in simplicity, in things that are real rather than aspirational. Here's where it gets interesting. Wabi-sabi doesn't mean you keep broken things. It means you stop chasing the accumulation of more perfect things. You stop adding. You start appreciating what is already in front of you, in its honest, undecorated form. A chipped ceramic bowl held with care is wabi-sabi. A closet stuffed with items you bought hoping they'd make you feel a certain way is the opposite. It's the pursuit of wholeness through objects. And Japan quietly says that never works. Now let's go deeper, because there's a specific Japanese practice called danshari, and it goes further than any tidying method you've probably tried before. Danshari comes from 3 words: dan, sha, ri. Dan means to refuse, to stop things at the door before they even enter. Sha means to dispose, to release what no longer serves. Ri means to separate, to genuinely detach from your emotional grip on objects. This is important. Most decluttering methods focus on sha alone, get rid of stuff. But danshari says the real work happens in dan and ri, refusing to bring things in, and releasing the emotional attachment that keeps you frozen when it's time to let go. A Japanese woman named Hideko Yamashita developed this framework. Her argument was simple. You don't have a clutter problem, you have an attachment problem. And until you address that, your home will keep filling back up. Here's the rule that runs through all of it. Every object in your home is either serving you right now or quietly costing you. There's no neutral. That stack of papers you haven't touched in 3 weeks? Costing you. That drawer full of cables for devices you no longer own? Costing you. The beautiful vase a friend gave you that you feel obligated to display even though you genuinely don't like it? Costing you. Slow down here. This is the core reframe Japan offers. Objects carry weight, not physical weight. Energetic, psychological weight. You absorb the unfinished decisions. You absorb the guilt. You absorb the quiet visual noise every single time your eyes pass over something that doesn't belong. And it adds up. All day. Every day. Let's look at the entryway first, because this is where the rule is most visible in Japanese daily life. In Japan, the entryway is called the genkan, and it's treated as a threshold, a sacred boundary between the outside world and the inner home. Shoes come off here. They're placed neatly, not tossed. The floor stays clear. Nothing accumulates. In Western homes, the entryway is often where chaos lands first. Bags dropped, packages stacked, shoes piled in a heap. You see it every time you walk in and every time you leave. Here's what that does to your nervous system. You come home hoping to decompress, and the first thing you see is disorder. Your brain reads that as unfinished business before you've even taken your coat off. A clear genkan does the opposite. It tells your body the moment you cross the threshold, you're home. You can rest now. 5 minutes each evening to clear that entry point is not a chore. It's a signal. Now, let's move into the kitchen, and let's be honest about what's actually living in there. Go open your pantry right now, Or just picture it. There's a spice jar from 2 years ago, a sauce you bought for one specific recipe, a stack of takeout menus for restaurants that may not even exist anymore. Japan's approach to the kitchen is built around the concept of freshness as a form of respect. The kitchen is the place where you prepare the sustenance that fuels your entire life. It's not a warehouse. It's not a museum of past grocery decisions. Every expired item sitting in your pantry is a small piece of stagnant energy in the most vital room in your home. The shift Japan suggests is not complicated. Fresh in, old out. Not as a chore, as a practice of respect for the space where your health is actually made. Let's talk about your closet, because this is where Danshari gets personal. Most people have clothes in their closet right now that don't fit. Not the body they have today, but a past body or a hoped-for future one. You're keeping those clothes out of guilt or optimism or fear. Japan sees this clearly. Keeping clothes that don't fit your actual life today is a daily act of self-rejection. Every morning when you open that door and see those items hanging there, your mind quietly receives the message, you're not enough as you are right now. That's not a gentle nudge toward a goal. That's a small wound that reopens every single day. The practice Danshari recommends is gentle but honest. Dress the person you are today, fully, with care and intention. Let the other versions go. Now let's talk about books. Because Japan has a word for something that might be sitting in your home right now. Tsundoku. It means the act of acquiring volumes you never open and amassing them in unfinished stacks. And in Japan, tsundoku is not celebrated as a charming quirk. It's understood as a subtle form of hoarding, a monument to intentions you haven't followed through on. Look at your shelves. Be honest. Which books have you actually read? Which ones are there because they made you feel like someone who reads that kind of book? That's not the same thing. The Japanese approach to books is simple. A book you've read and loved earns its place. A book you bought and abandoned is a quiet promise you made to yourself and didn't keep. You don't need that reminder sitting on a shelf every day. Here's something that might surprise you. Japan applies the same logic to empty space itself. This goes back to Ma. Not just tolerating emptiness, but deliberately preserving it. One practice that comes from traditional Japanese home design is the tokonoma. A tokonoma is an alcove in a room, traditionally used to display a single object, one scroll, one flower arrangement, one carefully chosen ceramic piece. Not because there's no room for more, but because one object, given space, becomes truly visible, truly appreciated. You actually see it. Compare that to a shelf crammed with 30 items. Your eye glazes over, nothing stands out, nothing is actually appreciated. It all becomes visual noise. The rule Japan is teaching here is that fewer objects, given room, produce more beauty and more calm than any number of objects competing for your attention. Let's go into the living room, and let's talk about the hidden stressors, the ones that spike your cortisol without you even noticing. Piles of unsorted papers on the counter, that tangle of cables behind the television, the drawer you can't quite close, the half-dead plant in the corner that you've been meaning to either save or let go. Each of these is what Japanese minimalists call a micro-stress point. One hit from each source is almost unnoticeable. But 40 micro-stresses, absorbed dozens of times a day as your eyes pass over them, that's the low-grade anxiety you carry without knowing its source. That's the reason you feel tired in your own home. Slow down here. Let that land. Your home should be the place where your nervous system most fully relaxes. If it can't, the objects in it are doing something to you. Now, I want to talk about something Japan understands that most Western decluttering methods miss entirely, the practice of uzuji. It's the deep seasonal cleaning that Japanese families perform at the end of the year, usually in December. Every surface, every drawer, every corner, not as a chore, but as a ritual. A deliberate closing of the year, a physical act of releasing the old and preparing space for the new. The key difference between uzuji and a regular deep clean is the intention behind it. In Japan, cleaning the home is understood as cleaning the mind. The two aren't separate. When you physically clear a space, you mentally clear it too. And doing it seasonally, ritually, gives the whole process a meaning that a Saturday afternoon scramble before guests arrive simply doesn't have. Your home becomes a reflection of where you are, not where you've been. Let's talk about what you're bringing in. Because Danshari's most underrated stage is Dan, refusal, stopping things at the door before they accumulate. And this is the hardest one, because Western culture is relentlessly good at creating reasons to acquire. The sale that ends tonight, the free sample at the checkout, the bulk buy that saves you money per unit. Japan approaches consumption from the opposite direction. The question isn't how cheaply can I get this? It's, do I actually need this to enter my home? Because once it's in, it costs you. Storage space, mental attention, eventual disposal. The Japanese concept of mindful consumption means buying fewer things, but genuinely better ones. One well-made knife instead of a block of 11. One quality bag instead of 4 cheap ones for different occasions. Less, but worthy of the space it takes. Here's a practice that takes 5 minutes. And 90% of you won't do it because it sounds too small. Every evening before you sleep, spend 5 minutes resetting the main surfaces in your home. Not cleaning, resetting. Return objects to their places. Clear the counters. Remove what doesn't belong in each room. In Japan, this is not considered extra effort. It's considered the last act of respect for the home before the day ends. And what it does psychologically is significant. You wake up to order instead of yesterday's chaos. Your morning doesn't begin with you navigating the aftermath of the night before. That 5-minute reset is the difference between waking up behind and waking up level. It's a tiny practice with an outsized return. Now let's talk about guilt objects. Because your home is probably full of them. The gift you never liked but feel obligated to display. The wedding present still in the box. The souvenir from someone's vacation that lives on your shelf simply because of who gave it to you. Here's what Japan understands about guilt objects. Keeping something out of obligation fills your home with obligated energy. Every time you dust that trinket, there's a tiny pang, a small weight. The Japanese principle is clear on this. The love was the gift, not the object. You can honor the kindness behind a gift and still release the physical thing. They are not the same. That souvenir has already served its purpose. It arrived. It was received with gratitude. Letting it go doesn't erase the moment. It just stops the moment from cluttering your present. Let's talk about aspirational items. The kitchen equipment you bought for a version of yourself that cooks elaborate Sunday dinners but never did. The yoga mat rolled up behind the door for 14 months. The language learning books on the shelf. These objects are not clutter in the traditional sense. They're well-intentioned. They came from a real desire to grow. But when they sit unused, they shift. They stop representing a future you're moving toward and start reminding you of a gap between who you are and who you thought you'd be by now. Japan's perspective here is not harsh, it's honest. Your home should reflect your actual life, not your projected one. If you haven't used something in 12 months and you're not actively moving toward using it, it doesn't belong in your space anymore. Release it to someone who will actually use it today, now. The most powerful concept, the one I promised to save. In Japanese philosophy, there's a principle that says your home is not your possession. You are its temporary occupant. You live in it for a season. And the objects you fill it with either honor that space or burden it. This shifts everything. Because when you see yourself as a temporary occupant rather than a permanent owner, the question of what stays becomes much easier to answer. Would this object honor the space if someone else were living in it? Would a person walking in feel calm or feel crowded? The home, in this view, has its own integrity, its own right to breathe, and your job is not to fill it, but to steward it, to tend to it, to make it a place that is genuinely welcoming to the people who live inside it, including you. Here's the reset test I mentioned at the start. Walk into each room in your home and stand still for 30 seconds. Don't look for clutter. Just feel the room. Does it feel like relief or resistance? Does your body soften or tighten? You already know which rooms need attention. Your nervous system has been tracking this the whole time. You just haven't listened. Start there, not with a massive overhaul, with one surface, one drawer, one shelf. Clear it completely. Give it back to Ma. Let it breathe. Then notice what that single act of space does to the room. Japan is known for centuries what neuroscience is only beginning to confirm. Your outer environment shapes your inner state. A clear home is not a luxury. It's a foundation, and it starts with understanding that the space you live in is always, quietly, either working for you or working against you. The Japanese rule isn't complicated. It's just honest. Bring in less. Release what no longer serves. Respect the space. Return to simplicity daily, not as a project, but as a habit, as a quiet form of self-respect. Your home can feel the way you've always wanted it to feel, not someday after a massive weekend overhaul. Starting tonight, starting with 5 minutes and one clear surface and one honest question about what in your home is actually earning its place.